Hey everybody, this is Jasmine with Black Flower Co Pro. Today we're going to be making the baby stuff, and we're also going to do a little bit of talk about some safety procedures. I want to make sure that my mamas that are holistic like me, when you're crafting and you're wanting to make things for your own family, because that's what we do, that you're doing it safely so you and your family can have products that are safe and better than anything you can find on the shelves. So let's get into what we're going to learn today. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and get this out of the way and talk about what safety means, because there's a big misconception in the natural community that everything natural must be good and anything with a crazy name or chemical must be bad. But you must be able to marry the two to have a safe medium, and it's really about having balance between the two. So let me explain what that means. Nature, I want to say, is very powerful and elemental. So when it comes to putting body or products, ingredients on your skin, you have to know how to apply them and make them safely so that when they go on the skin, they're not going to cause rashes, they're not going to mold, they're not going to clog pores, and just in general give overall bad reactions that we don't want to have, because believe it or not, there are some side effects that come with natural items as well. And I'm telling you this out of experience. I have been the biggest advocate for natural, don't have anything with a crazy funky name. And it took me a few years to really get familiar with what everything is, especially when it comes in terms to skincare and what we're making and putting on our little one's skin. So there's one thing, just because it's natural doesn't mean that it's good or safe for the skin, or that if you are going to put it in your products, you have to apply it with a certain procedure. And we're going to talk about some of those procedures today as well. And then so on the chemical side of things, now everything is made up of chemicals. People always say that, and it is true to the T, but the standard that I hold it to is the level of toxicity certain products have if you want to have certain kinds of products in your home. For example, if you are going to have creams or anything that has water in it, which we call aqueous products, you are going to need to have two things: an emulsifier and a preservative, and those are non-negotiable. Now, your emulsifiers can be plant-based. They can be plant-derived, but when it comes to preservatives, those are 100% chemical made in the lab. It sounds scary. Do you need them in your home products? If you're making just for your family and you really don't feel comfortable using them, no. There is one of them that I like to go with, and it's called Optifin, and it's pretty gentle, and it basically helps to ward away mold. For a number of reasons, you don't want mold in your products or growing in your products. And just to put it shortly, it can make you very sick and cause various infections, rashes. You don't want that. So if you are going to have a mix of waters and creams, you're definitely going to want to have these things to keep your family safe. You can use anhydrous products, which means no water. It also means equally that you keep away from wet, humid, muggy environments. Don't store them in the bathroom. And even though a lot of body butters, even I've said it in the past too, is make sure that when you apply it, you get the best results when you put it on immediately after the shower. Even with that being said, make sure your hands are completely dry. You do not want wet hands going into your anhydrous products, because it will begin to grow mold, and you don't want that. So these are things that you have to keep in mind when you're making products. You can't have one or the other. You can't have products that don't need preservatives. And let me tell you why too. A lot of formulators do put preservatives in, even in their anhydrous products. A lot of them do it because they want to keep you safe. And it also is a liability issue for them. They want to make sure that customers sometimes don't always see or read all the instructions for product care. And things happen environmentally that sometimes may get water into your products. So it's a safety precaution, but if you're making them at home and you don't want them or you don't have access to them, you don't have to put them in there. Just take those extra precautions. And then there's another way that you can kind of meet in the middle. And this we kind of commonly see with naturalistas, and you'll see in a lot of YouTube videos. Even Cardi B, she got some notoriety for doing a type of hair conditioning mask or something that you make and use right there on the spot. There you can kind of have a mixture. I think she did eggs, mayonnaise, avocado, something of the sort. And that's okay because you're not storing it. Same thing with a clay mask. A clay mask, as soon as you add the water or you activate it, essentially, you need to use it immediately, or it's going to start to age and go bad. So there are things like that that you can use, and we're going to be doing all three of these types of products today, okay? But you want to make sure that whenever you have those types of products, to where if you're going to be mixing some sort of water, like you want to make a banana hair mask or something fancy like that, that you use all of it. And there is one exception that I want to say when it comes to not using preservatives. Also, if you're doing home-based products and you're doing them from yourself, which is going to be hydrosols and like tea-like products. Those you can store in the refrigerator, and they can last depending on what it is. Hydrosols, as long as they do not have any sort of plant matter or anything like that in there, they can last anywhere from I want to say a few weeks to a month or two. And with hydrosols, if they're stored in the fridge and they do not have any other oils or like leafy plant products or anything contaminated in it, they could actually last for up to a year in the fridge without an extra preservative. So we won't be making the teas today, but I do personally love teas for the hair and spray teas for the face. I think they're lovely. We'll talk about it on a later date. But for today, I'm just letting you know basically what kinds of products either are good with preservatives and what products need them and what products just don't need them. And the same thing whenever you're going to add a humectant into your product, like honey or vegetable glycerin. These aren't necessarily technically considered water-based, but if you add a small amount and keep it away from moisture as best as you can, but you still kind of take a gamble because those kind of ingredients draw in moisture. So you have to be extra careful when it comes to not having them around any sort of water products, okay? So those are some things. You'll see some names with preservatives and emulsifiers that sound kind of scary, but I promise they are not all scary. Just make sure you really do your research on them. Some things to look out for are if they're made with any kind of formaldehyde, if they're made with parabens. For certain fragrances, there are clean brands and there are ones that are not so great. And the same thing with essential oils too. There are some essential oils that you have to be careful with depending on the age of baby. Some are not recommended for young infants because they will cause they're very harsh on the lungs and things like that, or they're just not suitable for little babies of certain ages. And there are essential oils that are lovely for them. So you can have a little bit of mixture of both, but you just really need to research your ingredients. And then so let's also talk about researching. This is a tough one, guys.
Where's Daddy?
Researching your ingredients. Let's talk about it. So a lot of us gather, and there's no shame, gather a lot of information from Google, Pinterest, and even YouTube, just like this, to try to gauge and learn as much about products and ingredients as possible. And I have to be the bearer of bad news with this because I want you guys to be safe, and I had to learn this firsthand from experience as well. There's a lot of misinformation. When I look up, even to this day, when I look up recipes, some of the first things that'll pop up online, if I'm just trying to see how find where other crafters do their procedures, sometimes forums will come up where people have discussions, and I try to look for them. And the sad thing about it is that when you look up certain things, especially in the natural realm, I see a lot of formulas and recipes and mixtures that people are making that are unfortunately not safe for one reason or another. A lot of them will still preach that even for water products, you can just store it in the fridge and you don't need any type of emulsifier or preservative. You cannot do that, or you can, and you'll just be at risk for mold and things like that, which we don't want. There are others that'll tell you things like, for me, the biggest one I had to learn the hard way that kind of opened my eyes and the doors to really, really delving deep into researching these ingredients is the biggest myth that I've heard thus far, that coconut oil, unrefined or refined, is great for the face. And I assure you it is not. There's this thing called the comedogenic rating scale. And so it basically means that certain oils and butters and ingredients rate on a scale of 0 to 5, and 0 meaning not likely to clog your pores, and 5 meaning very likely to clog your pores. Coconut oil is between 4 and 5. Same thing with cocoa butter. If you put it on the face, it is very likely to clog pores and break you out if you have acne. This is not knocking anybody that is using these kind of things and they say it works great, it works fine. That's good for you. Everybody's different. Genetics also play a huge role into what will help you or hinder you in your skincare journey for you and your little ones. However, these are scientific studies that are done to ensure that to keep these safety boundaries in place. So we really want to use the information for our families and ourselves, and as formulators giving to other people, we want to make sure that we do this with you. And a little bit to explain too, on the hand, well, we know that big companies that have store products that should sit on shelves, are bad. They're bad, right? Bad guys. Sometimes the good guys, the crafters at home, aren't necessarily always good either, and I hate to say that, but I just have to be honest with you guys about that. Is number one, you have to find a crafter that is 100% okay with disclosing every single ingredient in your products. Has to be that way, no holding back. You must know what goes onto your body, even if it's your sister, brother, aunt, mom making it for you. Get those ingredients lists. You put it on your body, you need to know what it is. And when you see those ingredients lists, you have to make sure that some things to check for is if there's any sort of water like aloe vera, milks, sea moss. If there's any of that in the products, there needs to be an emulsifier and there needs to be a preservative. And you should know what those are. So whenever there's a water product and the recipe doesn't mention that, stay away, run, okay? And for your face, I'd say the rule of thumb is to make sure that you look at the ingredients and say there's a bunch of them in there, right? There's like shea butter, coconut oil, argan oil, and there's a bunch of things that are not very comedogenic. If there's one ingredient in there that is, your mixture's comedogenic, I do not recommend putting it on your face. Same thing with sea moss. It's high in iodine, and any sort of other sea herb like kelp or kelp sea moss, spirulina, things like that can clog pores because they have high iodine. They can cause you to break out if you are acne prone. So these are important things to know that I think, especially as mamas wanting to make the best, and where we decided to take the route of going DIY and making it for our babies, or go talk to a trusted crafter that knows what she's talking about and is going to give us the best of the most natural herbs, juices, and berries and all of that. We've started this journey for a reason. We're doing what is the best and most safe thing for our children, our babies. So we want to make sure that we follow up with that standard by being fully informed. If you guys ever have any questions, anybody that watches this video, if you ever have any questions about ingredients, you can always reach out to me and I will help you. I can advise based off of what I know and my knowledge. I'm always willing to advise on whether I think something is good or something is not good, and I can tell you when, where, why, how. Okay. And if I don't know, I'll also let you know that. I'll say, sis, I don't know. It may or may not. I can help you look into it. I can try to give you some resources. There's all kinds of them online, but just to cover the basics of it, just make sure that you do diligence. Remember those things I said about when to check for ingredients and what they should have, and make sure that you are really looking into either the ingredients that you choose, if you're choosing to be your family's crafter, or the person that you're trusting to make your items. All right. All right, so we got the tough talk, tough love out the way. We're going to get into what we're going to be making today, and it's going to be some really lovely things. I think you guys are going to be pretty excited about what I'm going to tell you to make and what I'm going to show you, because I'm excited about them. I made them the other day in the live class. I love them. So let's jump right on into that. So here's the trouble we're getting in together today, okay? I have two of the products already made, because at the end I'm going to show you, I'm going to come back to these and show you how we go from the process of them needing their wait times, because they took a few hours to make, and their finished results. And these are their finished results. I'm not sure if you guys can tell them apart, but one of these is an anhydrous product and another one is an aqueous product. Remember, anhydrous without water, aqueous with water. So we have our baby butter. Now this is one of my personal recipes that I sold at blackflowerco.com. If you're looking to purchase the recipes of anything that I make in this video, be sure to check out blackflowerco.com. And if there's anything that isn't listed online that you want me to see if I can write a recipe card for you, I'll definitely be more than happy to do that. To get the bundle of things that I made in this class today, it was $20 with the live class. It'll be $30 if you'd like to purchase it now after for all three recipes, okay? So this is our baby butter. This one is a mango and shea mix. I really love using mango butter. I like using shea butter. They make a really lovely, soft, velvety type of oil mixture, like buttercream that goes smooth onto the baby's skin. I like to use more mango than I do shea. Shea can just be a little bit heavier, and mango helps it to absorb quicker, and shea gives it like that soft, sleek velvetiness that you just love. And if you want to make something that's more hypoallergenic, definitely just use mango butter. It's still great as a baby butter. I also use castor oil, jojoba oil. My go-to essential oil that I use with babies is chamomile. Let's see if I can get it on the camera. There you go. Roman chamomile. Generally, I actually like to use Plant Therapy. They're like the best ever. But this is another brand that's more accessible in stores. There are 3 different types of chamomile. You have Roman, which is what we have right here. I love Roman chamomile. There is actually 4. There's Mexican or German chamomile. I'm not a big fan of those. They smell similar, but they're just very different. You kind of have to smell for yourself to know the difference. And then there's another one that's very, very expensive, and it's called blue. They call it blue chamomile, and it's also known as blue tansy or azulene. And those are basically 3 different types of chamomile. Chamomile is great for babies, as well as rose can be, calendula, and even CBD in small moderation can be added to your formulations for babies. Yes, I said CBD. CBD, I'll give you a little short rundown. I always tell people this. I'm a huge advocate for kiddos using CBD. We actually have an endocannabinoid system, and CBD is present in breast milk, or I should say cannabinoids are present in breast milk to help the baby relax, to help the baby be able to eat more, and to help the baby get a little bit of that hunger going so the baby can make sure to get its nourishment. It's one of the body's natural ways of regulating itself in that sense, and it's a great alternative to melatonin, which we've all heard is natural. However, melatonin is a synthetic. We produce it naturally, but the kind that's sold in stores is a synthetic version that tricks our body into thinking that we don't need it to produce that melatonin anymore. So then it creates an imbalance, which can have a lot of side effects that aren't great for kids or adults. CBD is a wonderful alternative. You can always start dosing low. You can ask me about those too if you have any questions with that, but I really do like CBD for baby products in that sense. So this is the baby butter, okay? Anhydrous baby butter. This is our aqueous baby cream is what we'll call it, okay? Now, this one, the other one is made with colloidal oatmeal. Also, if you have any gluten intolerance, get gluten-free colloidal oatmeal. That's great to have to your formulations, because sometimes oatmeal can cause flare-ups if your child has eczema and things like that. It's not very well known. A lot of people say oatmeal is good for eczema, but sometimes it can be a little bit more counterproductive. So this is our oat milk baby cream. You can call it whatever you want, but this, I really love the texture. Since I started making emulsions, I really love them. And this is made with a house-made, I want to say, or homemade oat milk. And I made another fresh batch for you guys today. This is made with the fresh oat milk. It's preserved with Optifin. And I use Optifin at the higher amount that it is to be used. And I haven't had any problems. I've had emulsions with this that have sat around for quite a while, months, and I haven't had any issues. So always check with your, whenever, and we'll get into that. We'll get into the manufacturer and all that when it comes to Optifin. So baby cream. This one has mango butter. It has our emulsifier, BTMS 50. This is a derivative of rapeseed. We have our Optifin. We have a little bit of vegetable glycerin. And this is a humectant that really helps to attract and seal in moisture. We put our Roman chamomile in there, and it comes to be a nice creamy blend. And what lotions give you that butters alone do not is actual moisture. Butters do not give moisture. Oils do not give moisture. You need an aqueous ingredient to give you the skin that moisture. At best, butters are sealants. That's why they're good to be used when the skin is wet, so you can seal in that moisture, okay? This gives you both. And if you use them in tandem, your lotion first and then your body butter, then you have really, if you have dry skin, do that, and that should really help you a lot, okay? So we're gonna come back to those finished results. In the meantime, let's get started with all the melting and mixing, okay? While we've been talking, I do have a double boiler going. I will show you guys what that looks like to get ready to melt down our butters. And melting down our butters, we have to do that because otherwise they come out lumpy. Also, another thing, another note, I'm going to walk you guys basically through everything that I learned on my journey. When I first started doing products, there was another misconception that heat was bad when it comes to products because it kills nutrients. And there's truth to that. However, there's also another side to heat. Heat is not 100% the bad guy, okay? Heat can help to activate your products sometimes. Like it activates herbs. There's certain herbs that require heat to extract and decoct some of their lovely values, okay? It's not all bad. Just make sure you're not burning your products. Check on them, watch them, babysit them. When it comes to curating your products, it takes love and patience, as you'll see in the video that we're gonna go through. But heat is not bad. If you are gonna heat them, I do recommend the double boiling method, or they also call it a water bath method, because other people use microwaves, and microwaves really do. They nuke it, and you know, as natural mamas, we tend to not like to use microwaves even with our food, so we definitely don't wanna use it with our products. And you melt it down, because otherwise if you don't, either you'll have to spend hours and hours and hours on end trying to blend your oils or your butters, and to no avail, because I have tried it. So it doesn't work out great for a lot of butters. It does work for shea sometimes, but you have to just mix for an extremely long amount of time. And if you want to do that, more power to you. But I like to use the melting method, because this ensures that you're not going to have any lumps. And there are butters that you have to melt, or you will have not only lumps but grittiness, because these butters are just harder. So I don't know if you guys saw, but I whipped out my trusty food scale here, and I have two different kinds of scales. I recently had to replace my gram scale. I got this one from Walmart because I dropped and broke my other one while making the last video, which I was very sad about, but luckily I was able to easily replace it. This is for your bigger amount of ounces, like when we're getting ready to measure our butters and all that right now. This is for small things, like when you'll want to get exact and precise measurements for your essential oils, because measuring essential oils, in order to be 100% accurate when you want to scale up or when you want to continue to do a recipe, if not, you can do drops, that's fine, but it's not always accurate. Even if you use 10 drops each time, it can weigh differently. So if you want to scale up or have an exact specific recipe, you want to make sure to use your gram scale, and you can set it to ounces too. Set everything to one concise measurement, or what do you call it, unit system, so that you can know how much you're adding of what, okay? But you want to use that when it comes to measuring preservative, when it comes to measuring fragrance, essential oils, and small things that your bigger scale might not pick up. So I start by turning it on. I make sure that my whatever I'm using to melt the items is on here, my cup, my bowl is on here, and I press 0, because then it clears it out. So I'm not getting the weight of the bowl that's going to mess up my measurements. And for this one, I'm going to get some mango butter. Like I said, if you have, if you'd like this exact recipe and the exact measurements, make sure to head over to blackflowerco.com, and these will be available for purchase. This is our baby body butter, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and do our shea butter. And if you have purchased the recipe and you're watching this and you're doing it along with me, feel free to go by to do what I'm doing right now. Okay, so what we're going to do here that I like to do is called a partial melt. Your mango butter needs to be melted all the way down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the shea butter while it's hard and whole after this is melted down and cleared. Okay? So this is for our baby butter. That's going to go in there. And let me show you exactly where it went actually. So this is our double boiler. You have your heat source. You can use the stove. I'm using a hot plate. And then you have your bowl that you don't use to cook food in. Sorry, the same equipment that you use to cook food to make products. It's not a good crossover. And see, it's already starting to melt. And you notice that the butter does not come in contact with the water. Okay, it's going to melt it, and that's going to be done in a few short seconds here. So now let's get back to our next task and what we're going to be working on with our emulsion. Okay, our emulsion is our water and oil mix, our aqueous product. So with these, I'm not sure if you noticed that there's a theme with the type of equipment that I'm using to melt butters and oils in. They're either Pyrex glass or they're metal, like the container that we were just using. You want to make sure that you melt the products in any sort of material that is not going to break or shatter, because then you're going to have a bunch of ingredients wasted, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to waste ingredients. These are precious and special and sometimes expensive, and at the same time break equipment, because those are also valuable to us. This butter is actually almost melted. It's going back quick. So okay, so what we're going to do here is you need to use, for our emulsion, you need to use two different kinds of beakers. One is going to be for your oils, the smaller one, oils and waxes and things and such and butters. And then your other one is going to be for your water, which in this case is going to be our milk and glycerin. So we're going to measure out our, what is it called? Sorry, I forget the terms for them sometimes. We're going to measure out our emulsifying wax and our oils, and we're going to melt them together. Alrighty, so while we're doing that, quick side note, because this happened fast, is our butters are almost melted. So they're going to continue, even though there's a few chunks in there, we're going to wait until it melts all the way down. I'm going to take it out and see if it'll melt down by itself without using additional heat. Usually if you stir them around or swirl them a little bit, they'll dissipate on themselves. And this is about a good time to take them out, because then you're not overdoing it on the heat. Okay, we're going to set this to the side while we are finishing our emulsion and stuff here. Okay, so we're going to add our emulsifying wax. Then we're going to add our butter. We're going to be using mango butter for this one. And then we're going to be adding our oil. Okay, and now that we have that, we're going to melt these together. And then we do have to heat our milk, our aqueous ingredients, because whenever you add them together, if your milk is cold and your waxes are hot, it's going to cause them to harden up too quickly. And what that's going to do is that's going to cause it to be gritty, and it can ruin your emulsion. So towards the end, we're going to want to put that in there and melt it down. Well, not melt it down, but just at least get it to where it's warm enough to where it won't immediately destroy our emulsion. So this is almost done. See, on its own, it's still melting down from the heat that's still remaining in the bowl. So here we're going to measure our water ingredients and set them to the side. And then we're also going to be adding in our vegetable glycerin. And we're going to be mixing these together, okay? Now, you want to, and like I said, you will have to add your preservative to it. We are going to add our essential oils, but those we want to add at the very end with good reason. Those you want to add in towards the end because they are temperature sensitive, which means that if you add them in while it's still too hot and too early, then you can have an ineffective, then your preservative will not be as effective as it could be. And that happens because preservatives are heat sensitive, so you will kill off some of those antimicrobial values if you are going to be, if you're going to use your preservative, and you don't want to do that because then there's almost no point in putting it in there, right? Okay. So we're going to set this to the side. I'm going to stir this, make sure my spoon is dry, and just give this a mix. Now, the reason why I'm waiting to add the shea and I only do the oils is because it helps to help them solidify naturally more quickly. You can put them in the fridge to solidify. However, whenever you put it in the freezer, I should say, if you're going to put it in the freezer, make sure, or if you're going to put it in a colder temperature, make sure it's always covered so there's no moisture going in from the refrigerator or the freezer into your mix. And you also want to, when you put it in the freezer, I'll say it has what I call an artificial freeze, and that basically it gets cold and hard really fast, which would sound like a good thing, right? Well, what happens when that happens quickly is that as soon as you start mixing it, it goes immediately back to liquidy quickly. This is what I've noticed. So I actually spend a lot more time doing it that way. And even if you refrigerate it, because I only have butters and not oils in here, you still want to watch it and check on it from every 5 to 10 minutes because it can start to solidify pretty quickly. And so with adding the shea, the heat that's still in here from the oil will continue to help melt the shea so that the shea can be smooth. And it'll also help to make the mango butter, because it's a cooler temperature, firm up a little bit more. And I'm going to measure my shea. Adding in the oils just makes it take longer. If you don't mind waiting, because either way, it takes 24 hours, you have to check the next day. And if that's what you want to do, then you can put in your oils, you can mix it around well still, and just let it sit, cover it, let it sit overnight, come back to it in the morning, and do your re-whip. Okay? Now don't fret, this is from the butter, the same butter earlier. Same exact one. I kind of, when I put it in, I smash it a little bit, because when you start mixing it initially and it's liquidy and chunky at the same time, butter pieces will go flying everywhere. So let's go ahead and give this a blend while we're still waiting for our waxes to melt. Here's the rule of thumb while we are waiting for our milk to heat up a little bit more. It's almost done here. You always want to mix in a bigger bowl to give yourself a little bit room for error, and also because products tend to expand, especially when you're adding ingredients together. Things fluff up, things move around, and you want to give yourself some more space to be able to work with and blend. Now I know with the butter, you saw me using the whipper, right? Or the mixer. You can use this, but I highly recommend for creams that you use an emulsion stick blender. Okay, this is going to help to get you a really rich, creamy texture. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to add in my water ingredients first, because it just comes out of the bowl a lot quicker and smoother. Okay, aqueous first, and then you have to have your equipment ready on the side to be fast, because it's going to begin to thicken up as soon as we put it in there. So you want to dump all of it out and just be ready to rumble here in a few short seconds. And by the way, mamas, you can use oat milk, you can also use breast milk. It just depends, and it will be fine. Just know that milk sometimes can be a little bit trickier to preserve. So even for these kind of creams, sometimes it's better to just store them in the fridge if you'd like. Even though I personally have not had any issues, I still like to keep them in relatively cool and dry places for that reason. Okay, so let's begin to mix our emulsion. And you can see as soon as we start to mix, it actually gets pretty thick and creamy quickly. This texture is fine. This will be a little bit more if your baby has drier skin. Oh yeah, that feels great. But if you want to have it be a little bit more liquidy or have a little bit more water to it, you can always make sure you just measure if you do this. Add some more milk or water. And this is almost like a yogurt or a custard. It's actually really cool. Nice and thick. This is rich. And let me tell you right now, this is actually considered a cream, a body cream, as opposed to like a lotion. Normally, lotions have a reputation for being not as great for dry skin as butters, but this right here is perfect because it's not even too heavy. The oils that I chose, they have a high or fast absorbency rate, which means that they melt into the skin pretty well. But this makes your skin feel extremely silky and fully hydrated. If your baby has dry skin, you're definitely going to want something like this for your baby. And the oatmeal will be super soothing on the skin. This is just a lovely. I always kind of rave about my products, guys. If this is not your first video with me, you guys know I feel like that, but it's part of the reason why I have such a passion and I love skincare, because I love getting these types of results that just are fantastic. Look at that. This is going to be a great cream. Great for baby skin. And we are not done yet though. We are going to cover this and set it aside. You can use any sort of like cling wrap. Okay, make sure you cover it. You're minimizing contamination. And we need to wait for it to cool to be able to add in our preservative and to add in our chamomile. But basically what I'm going to do is I have another smaller beaker. And I'm going to be adding in my Optifin right here. You turn it on. And then I'm going to be using this to add in both my Optifin, which is my preservative, and my essential oil. Now, let's talk about preservatives, okay? A little bit of information where there's lots of misinformation. vitamin E oil, grapefruit extract, or sorry, I think it's rosemary extract. Those are not proper preservatives. They are antioxidants. If you have an oil mixture that you're using, kind of like a tincture, or I just like to call them herbal infusions, it helps, those kind of oils help to keep it fresher and from going rancid a little bit faster. But it's not a preservative, okay? So if that's a red flag, if there's a maker or any sort of ingredients list that lists vitamin E as your preservative, it is not that, I promise you that. Another one that I looked into is called, I may butcher the name, but lucedo, and it is known as fermented radish root. That it can help preserve your emulsions. However, it needs to have a co-preservative because by itself it does not have enough of those values to keep mold from growing, okay? So you absolutely must use a preservative. I recommend Optifin. And how you use it. Okay, so you take your weight of your total product, and then you're going to be adding either 0.75 to 1.5%. Your manufacturer will always tell you in the bottle of your preservative to your product. You're going to weigh that out. You can easily use Google to translate how many ounces, percentages to ounces. You can use Google. They even have a calculator for formulations to do that with, okay? And you want to make sure that's the case. And then also the temperature for this one that it says to not put in is that you need to make sure that you put it in once your emulsion has reached 60 degrees. No more than that, because then it will be too warm. It will kill some of these properties. And according to this manufacturer, we don't want to do that. Okay. So now that our emulsion, and that's going to take some time to cool down. But in the meantime, so while we're waiting for that, we're going to go ahead and finish our butter, because it looks like it's actually going to be finished. It is gotten way thick, okay? Way thick, guys, but we are not done here. So I'm going to add in my jojoba oil. It's nice and golden. I really like that about jojoba. And that's another thing about choosing proper carrier oils, okay? I do not consider jojoba to be a carrier oil because of how expensive it is. When you choose carrier oils, especially if you're trying to be frugal and cost-friendly, you want to choose things like safflower oil, olive oil, grapeseed oil, oils that are easy to get your hands on and that you can easily find in bulk, okay? That is going to be your best bet, because otherwise you will spend a fortune making these butters. And hey, if you have it, you got it, hey, more power to you, make that luxurious butter, but it's going to cost you. I like to do castor. Sorry, this is like a big old tub, and I'm almost done with it. Okay, castor, this is cold pressed. It's great for the skin, very, very moisture sealing. It's also great for hair. Okay, just a little bit, because it can get kind of sticky, but it actually has a pretty decent absorbency rate. And then the rest is going to be safflower oil. Now, normally, to keep my butters from melting, the really only safe way to do it is actually doing an emulsion. However, if you use BTMS 50 without any water, it's actually holds it together really well. And one thing that I like about BTMS 50 is even though it's a wax, it does not leave a waxy film on your skin. It actually helps to, it gives you like a moisturizing seal, but it's not waxy. It doesn't leave like an icky kind of coating at all. It's really, really soft. And I actually like to use this in my body butters now. And you just melt that in with the butter phase, okay, in the very beginning. So let's mix this up and see how thick it gets. Actually, at first it's going to get really runny, and then it'll start to thicken up again. Pregnancy brain almost got me. Okay. I am going to use this to measure my essential oils, okay? I'm using my nice little scale here. And it's going to pick up even the smallest amount of drops, which is very cool. A special bonus that I like to add, and this is perfect, this is a time when you would want to add in like any colorants or any extra powders that you're going to use, is I use gluten-free colloidal oatmeal, okay? You still want to make sure that you don't use a lot because it can get gritty. If you're going to put any powders into your butters, they need to be extremely finely ground, and still do them at a small percentage rate to make sure that the grittiness doesn't occur. We're going to check on our other products, and we still have another soap to make. while we are waiting for that to settle a little bit more, we're going to take the temperature of our emulsion and see where we are at. Still measuring pretty warm. It's at about a 93, so we definitely have a little ways for it to go for it to be ready for us to add in our emulsifier. So I will have to do that. I'll just have to keep on watching it and babysitting it and do that shortly here. While we're waiting for this to cool down, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a super easy, anybody can do DIY baby soap. One thing that's commonly said in the natural community is that a brand like Dr. Braun is just great. I like this scent Rose. You can also use Baby. You can also use a non-Dr. Bronner's brand. And what you want to do though is dilute it. Okay. And this is a way that you can dilute it. And there's controversy over this. Here's what I will say. At home, if you're gonna make this and you want to make a quick baby soap, I would say just make enough for your baby to use just one time. Just go ahead and use it. I haven't had any issues as long as I make sure do not put milks or any other sort of expirables. You just want to basically do oils and a humectant at best whenever it comes to your soaps. I've read that the pH is high enough and naturally occurring to where it will not allow for mold to grow, but when you add things into a soap, that's where it gets a little murky and it may or may not happen. So this, I would say your safest bet is to make some, like just, right before in the morning when you know your baby's going to take a bath, and just make them a quick little shampoo, okay? And you can use this with any sort of liquid cast-style soap base. So I'm going to be adding a little bit in here. A little bit of vegetable glycerin for that skin absorbing, water absorbing values. Just a little bit goes a long way. And then you can use olive oil, coconut oil, safflower oil, whichever kind of oil that you feel that you want to use. And you don't need any special equipment to stir it. You can use a spoon. I would also say, yeah, just use it quickly, but it can get creamy sometimes. You can also see it gets creamy, like a really thick kind of wash. It looks almost like milky, which is pretty cool. I really love it at this texture. Definitely get, you can use water to cut it down as well to dilute it, but this makes like a really nice soothing, skin soothing baby wash, okay? And that's it for your baby wash. That's all you do. You literally mix those in, and then you get your bub in the bath, and boom, wash them down with that. It'll feel excellent. All right, now let's go ahead and see how much further we can mix this butter before we just let it rest ultimately for the night. Ooh. So even with all that whipping, it looks creamy, right? We're not done. This has to sit overnight covered, just like the other butter or the other, our emulsion. And so that I cover it so it doesn't get contaminated by sitting out. But this texture will get thicker. Not significantly, it won't be hard because of the exact ratio of butters to oils that I use. It works perfectly every time. But it definitely will thicken a little bit more. If you like this texture, which is a little bit like looser, more like a cream texture, kind of it's looser, then you will want to just add in more oil in the morning. Add in like a tablespoon at a time to get the texture that you want if you're not working with my recipe. This is more of a finished recipe right here. I know it doesn't look like much of a difference, but let me just give it one re-whip and see it's thicker. This is like ideal texture right here for me. I love it a little bit thicker. You can tell it's thicker because it doesn't slide down the way that the other one does, and there's much more definition in your lines, okay? And as you can see, you can kind of tell the difference. Both the exact same butter, but just in different phases. This is our finished phase. This is what this is going to turn into in the morning here, okay? And as for the creams, if we look at them side by side, they do look a little bit different, and let me explain that to you. Okay, thick, chunky, creamy, yum. Let's go ahead and check and see if it's cooler now to add in our Optifin. A couple degrees, but definitely not cool enough to add in Optifin yet, our friend. This is thick and rich. This is ideal for more dry skin. This one is definitely more, it's still pretty thick. It's more like, you know, Greek yogurt and yogurt, if you have to describe the difference between the two. And the reason being is that this one over here, lefty, just has, or whatever view you're seeing, the more that my hand's over, it is more of a, it has more milk in it, okay? It has more of your water product. This has less milk. If you don't like oily products at all and you don't want extra oil sitting on your skin, you just need a quick little moisture go, this is gonna be your go-to. If you want a little bit more of that thick, rich creaminess, a little bit more oils, a little bit more moisture, my hands are still feeling extra soft right now, by the way, then you wanna go with a more thicker consistency, okay? So you can adjust them either way. And that, my lovely parents or friends or families or whoever's watching this video that wants to make products for their family or just yourself, is how you create 3 different types of skin safe, lovely, wonderful, very naturalistic products for your baby. So you want to make sure to take your safety precautions very seriously. Like I said, anticipate a little bit of texture change in your products as they kind of set overnight and as they get cooler and cool down, or when they go into heat. Ooh, look at that. This is our oatmeal milk cream that we made today. Ooh, extra creamy. I love textures. I always get excited about that. But so anticipate a little bit of texture change. It's okay. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. A couple ways to troubleshoot if anything does go wrong with, I'll give you a quick rundown with butters. With butters, if it hardens up too much by the morning or whenever you next check it, just add in a few tablespoons at a time, whip it for like 2-minute intervals, let it sit, let it rest for like 10 or 15 minutes and see where it's at, and see if you need to adjust there. So that's how you fix it if it's too hard. If it's too runny and it just doesn't solidify, you need to also first make sure that your temperature in your house or wherever you're storing it in is relatively cool. Otherwise, it's not gonna solidify. That heat will make it melt. But other than that, if your house is cool and it's still just runny, not the way that you want it, you're going to fix that by melting down some more butter and adding it and re-whipping that to your equation and kind of just going through the process again. And your butter will thicken up. It's saved, I promise. Another issue is grittiness. There's 2 reasons why grittiness really happens. And the first reason is generally if you do not melt your butters down enough, or if it hardens too much by the time you start doing the re-whipping when you're adding in the oils. You want to, so basically what you're going to do to fix that is just melt it back down and then re-whip, kind of go through that process again, and that's it. The second reason for grittiness that happens is if you're using some sort of powder or colorant or anything like that, any sort of powder, and it is it's not fine enough to really dissolve into your butter. I don't want to say dissolve because it doesn't dissolve in oil, but it doesn't, you know, fully, you can still feel it in your butter, essentially. And what you want to do for that is you want to melt it all the way back down, and you want to strain them out by using an extremely fine cheesecloth to get all of those little gritty pieces out, and then you just basically re-whip, and that's how you got those out of there. If you get water into your butter, at that point, that's where I would say it's pretty much unfixable. I'm not sure about adding a preservative after that. If you get water in the oil, yeah, just stay on the safe side. It's contaminated. You might want to start over again. So you really want to be careful when you're doing these, because you don't want to get to that point where you end up messing it up. Here's our body wash. That's like an extra creamy little baby wash, just oils and soap. This feels so good on little booties that need that extra layer of moisture. Okay, and with emulsions, if your emulsion is too thick, if you are like, I need it to be thinner, I need it to be more watery, add water. Do not add any more oils. And even with then, you still want to be careful. I want to say there's almost, you got to play it safe with the numbers and just make small batches, because if you have your preservative and you have to remelt for whatever reason, it's going to destroy those values. If you remelt it or say you start to see it separate because at that point you don't have enough emulsifier anymore if you keep adding in more products, then you have a broken emulsion, and if you add in more oil, the emulsion will just continue to separate and not stay together. So there's kind of a lot of little things that can go wrong when it comes to making products for yourself or your kiddos. If you ever need any guidance, if you ever have any questions, if you need any troubleshooting, send me a message. I'm more than happy to help. Reach out, give me that SOS. I don't always respond immediately, but I definitely will respond, and I will help you in the best way that I know how, or point you in the direction of somebody that can help you a little bit better than me. So that is basically the conclusion for our baby class, you guys. These are mainly baby products. I know a lot of mamas have asked me a lot about products for their kids, and they want to learn how to do it themselves. This is a great starting point for you. And again, if you want some of these exact recipes for these amazing products that you watched me make today, you can purchase the recipes on the website blackflowerco.com. And then once you purchase the recipe, you can come back and you can make it with me. And it'll be like that. We'll get you and baby some great products, okay? I'll give you those exact recipe cards. They'll be sent straight to your email, and you can just have everything ready to go. And if you feel like you need that more of a one-on-one touch where you're not just watching me on a camera, you can actually schedule live classes with me. And I do private sessions. It'll just be me and you, intimate one-on-one. You get to ask me questions, how I do it live, watch me do it again. And it's a lot more intimate of a setting, and a lot of people like to do that because they like that more hands-on approach that I give. So there we have it. As I said, reach out. Let me know. Let me know if you like this video. I love the feedback. Let me know if you feel like I could have been more informative in any way, shape, or form. If there's any questions, anything that isn't clear, let me know. I'm happy to help. And so that's it for today. You guys have a lovely whatever time of the day you're having.